Hello all and welcome to History with R&R Live. We've been away for a while, but we're back. Yay!
And they found a potato lying in the back garden alone and frightened underneath a bucket.
Yeah,
Something like that.
unfortunately it's escaped from the bucket.
Yes. Speaking about buckets.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome everyone. Just take a quick spin through chat here. If my computer will let me, probably not because it's being goofy. All right, so we have Gorilla's Random Thoughts, Mrs. Canuck, welcome. We have Mountains of Elysium, the Good Irishman. Unfortunately, we have Revan.
Wait. Well, if I'm a
Well,
potato,
you
does
know.
that technically make me an Irishman or an Irish potato? Let's figure that out eventually.
I'd say you're French fries, but you know,
Yay! I surrender.
especially heavy on the French side.
Ooh.
All right, so Revan, what are we here for today?
Okay, so the greatest scandal never told. One man killed two sitting monarchs. Brother and
Wasn't
sister.
that like wasn't that like par for the course back in the day?
Well, yeah, but this was in Middle Ages. This is like in 1925 and and 1936. He killed brother and sister.
Ah,
Yes, claimed they were
So a
euthanized.
little more modern times here.
Exactly. So not Game of Thrones. So give a bit of backstory to his health. George V was sick enough, like always, and he was doing a horse riding event with the Trooping of the Colours when he fell off his horse, as you do. And he was also a heavy smoker, so he developed cancer. Now, all the doctors, he had doctors from all over the empire, doctors from other surviving empires up until that time, Austro-Hungary and different things like that, trying to save his life. And one doctor was managing his pain, but not curing him. This doctor's name was Dr. Bernhard Edward, the first Dawson, the first Viscount Dawson of Penn, because, you know, you always have to get a title when you work with royalty. So he was managing his pain for a few years. And then it came up that the king was dying. And so he's like, okay. So more and more of the king's duties were given off to his son. Now, here's the thing. When he was dying, like in bed, about to kick the bucket, he turned around and he said, I want the king's death. This is written from his own diary that he wanted the king's death to be announced in the evening papers, not the morning papers. So he euthanized, with no advisement from the doctors or from the Ramden. Was a royal? Would have been called the royal or the imperial family?
royal. Depending
Royal
on
family,
which
okay.
country. If it's Britain, it's royal.
Okay, even though he was an emperor, still royal?
Yeah.
Okay, so without any givenness from his wife or his mother, right? Are they heir apparent? No go ahead from the Privy Council, no go ahead from government. He decided to euthanize the king. And the king's last words were, damn you. And he wrote that it was like that he lifted up his hand and it was like he was trying to strangle him. And then his hand dropped down and he passed away in his sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. It's been known because his son, Queen Elizabeth's father, also had cancer as well. But they never told him that he was dying at all because they just thought it improper that he should know. They didn't want to frighten the man.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you'd think that the king would have at least have had right to know that he himself is trying to put shit into place beforehand, but they didn't. So Queen Elizabeth's father died of cancer on the operating table, basically, but they said, okay, he's not going to make it that long, so they sent him back to bed to die in his bed, and he died in his sleep. So the next morning, that's when they made the famous like Westminster Bridge down or London Tower down or something like that. But he was never, like, Dr. Dawson was never arrested at all. In fact, he went over to Norway a few years later. Queen Maud had suffered complications. Now, that was in 25. This is in 36. So she had suffered a couple of complications from childbirth, and she'd got show all of her children and her pregnancies and miscarriages. She's gotten constant infections, which kind of fucked her up, and then turned into cancer and everything like that. So he chose to do the same thing with her. And her last words were, "God, why? What will happen with my children?" Now, her children were all adults. Like her son actually became Hakon the 10th, I believe, or Hakon, the king who led the Norwegians back to Norway, which really solidified the crown again. But yeah, he was the one who's like, you know what, screw this. So yeah, but he was never arrested. They only found this out in 1987 after he wrote down and gave it to his little black book to his nurse.
Yeah.
Which, if his nurse didn't do anything, I believe, to me, that means he had some dirt on her.
Well, to me, it's always been a case of when things like this happen, especially with the royal family, whether it's the British royals or the Norwegian or anywhere else, to all intents and purposes, I mean, if you really want to get into it, I mean, like, technically, depending on who you talk to, Pope John Paul I did not die of natural causes if you talk to the right people. I mean, actually, it's in the conspiracy theory realm, but there's a large proportion of people that believe that Pope John Paul I.
The thing about that is that it actually may have been more popes was murdered, because you cannot do an autopsy on a pope.
No. Well, the other one was Pope John Paul II. That people kind of go,
Actually, he wasn't, because I was in school at the time, and I went to a school run by Christian brothers, and the brothers were all in a fuss and everything like that. And they said that hey, farms! And they said that one of the cardinals was in the fluster because they gave him, again, morphine. After they put a tracheotomy in, he couldn't speak anymore. But the thing is, it wasn't that he couldn't just speak, it's that when he tried to speak, he was which wasn't normal.
No. But I mean, like, whenever you come up with, like, come against the royal family, or the imperial family, or anybody of any power per se, there's always going to be that, wait a second, because especially if it's a sudden death, like if somebody they were fine the day before and then the next day they keel over. When it's, your common man, it's, that's so tragic.
But when you have that much
power, or what have you, when it's somebody of import or of power, the immediate jump is somebody killed him, or her, or what have you, because for some reason, if they're of any import, they just can't die. That doesn't happen. No, they've got enough doctors up the yin yang and enough money that no, this doesn't happen.
Yeah. And also the threat as well, because royals are all, in all the different countries, are all one big family.
Yeah.
So
that was the problem in World War I.
Yeah, it was a family squabble. Actually, fun fact, I was recently reading, they believe that one of the leading causes of World War One was Queen Victoria's death, right?
Possible.
Because she
Possible.
kept the grandkids under toe,
Yeah.
who were all the reigning monarchs.
Yeah. Nobody would go up
And
against grandma. Yeah.
no one would, as any family would, no one would go up against Granny. But the thing is, it's like if she had someone else, maybe a sister or someone else who was another matriarch, let's say Tsar Nikolai's mother, I forget her name, but if she was a strong house as well, when Victoria passed away, like, well, Granny's aunt is
Well,
there, like,
when it comes to that, it was more of the fact that the Tsar was not his father. That was
no.
part of the problem. The Tsar was not his father. He had a size 6 shoe and he was trying to fill a size 12. So,
I
and I
heard
don't mean
people
that
say that
literally.
his
He didn't
brother
have a
was
size
his
6,
younger
but
brother was his
you
father.
get the idea. He
Hmm.
couldn't live up to who his father was. The British royal family, of course, well, we are the biggest, baddest, and you can all kiss my arse. I said do this and you didn't, so now you're in trouble. And the German military, the German royal family wanted to be on equal footing,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore you get a route to disaster. And so that's where that comes. But the royal family is interesting in that sense because, and it's not just the royal family, but anybody of any import. If
Yes.
like look at Michael Jackson or what have you, if they have any imports in the world, fame, fortune, what have you.
Yeah, I mean, in my country, like, there was one or two prime ministers who just, died.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's always, there'll always be the question, well, could this have been foul play? And the other
Yeah.
thing too that you also have to remember is in some cases they were I can't off the top of my head because I don't feel good today. But there are cases where the royal has dictated something verbally
Hmm.
and that person has then acted on what they were told. The problem
Mhm.
was is they didn't get it in writing.
No.
Yeah.
So after the fact, they get, well, you did this. Well, he said to prove it. And then, the beloved father or grandfather, who was the beloved royal, has died and you killed them. Well, they told me to. Yeah, sure they did. Right?
I mean, Queen.
Off to the tower with you.
Yeah, like Queen Elizabeth. There's people outside of her door, and so much of that palace is actually bugged
Mhm.
because of things like this.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, I mean, you have to look at it like this. Elizabeth, technically, as long as her reign has been, was never meant to be on the throne. That was due to a little thing of, a certain king had to get off the throne before World War II started.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, I was looking into that. So she would have ended up on the throne anyway.
no,
Because no,
no.
then who was meant to be there instead of her? Because if he had no kids, that would have meant her dad would have.
Well, if he would have, he would have probably had an heir at some point.
You think he would have had a bastard and legitified it?
Yeah, he would have. He would have eventually had an heir, and then Elizabeth would have never been on the throne.
Mm-hmm.
Her father definitely wouldn't have been. Her father was never meant to be on the throne. He took to the throne like oil to water because he was never
Yeah.
meant to be there. They had to quickly rush him in and get his, him able to speak in front of more than 3 people. And
I mean, what like from what my friend, she's been like, we've been looking over Dutch history and things like that, and one of the things is it's like the Dutch always, when they were talking about their royals, and they used to say within the royal family and everything, they used to go, okay, so look out there, what do you see? You see, say, I see 1,000,000 people in front of me, 1,000,000 subjects. It's like, yeah, I see a potential army.
yeah,
I see it said you need to keep that army. You need to keep all those people happy. Look at Russia. Look at Germany. Look at there. They
yeah,
said you rule because the people will it. The
yeah,
people, if
Mm.
they turn against you, your head is going on a pike.
yeah. Just go look at France. Um,
Wait, that's not real country, dude. That's just propaganda.
yeah,
Really?
talk to Antoinette about that one. But it comes down to real. In all honesty, it's just any time that you have uh, a high stature
Society.
person pass away, there's always going to be that what if,
Yeah.
especially if it's sudden or it's out of the blue,
Look at how
or
much conspiracy theories and questions and like this historians have raised their entire professions around German dictator 1936 to 1945. What
yeah,
happened to him in the end?
yeah.
Thank you, YouTube, for making us
Yeah, they
sound like
had
we forgot.
a history channel show all about that. But
It was on
the
after
other thing
Ancient
too,
Aliens.
which was absolutely dreadful, but at any rate, uh, but it just comes down to the ruling class. For
Mm-hmm.
some reason, we look at and we go, well, they just can't die like we can, right? They can't just wake up one morning and have a heart attack. That doesn't happen.
Yeah. I
Right?
mean, I've
There
read
has
books.
to be a reason behind this because they've got the best doctors, best medicine, best blah 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 blah. So they can't just
Especially,
heal
yeah.
over like the rest of us.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I
and
was
Especially
looking in
today.
diaries and things like that, and when my in my ancestors' war diary, one of the German kings died. Just for a fact, if everyone didn't know, up until 1870, the concept of Germany didn't exist.
yeah,
It was more of a then there was a confederation, but before that, it was simply known as the German states.
yeah,
So he was from Prussia.
okay,
That's where his dad was from. And when a king of Prussia died or a duke passed away, he wrote down in his diary, he said he didn't know what to do. He said he didn't know if he was going to be recalled. He didn't know if what the hell was going to happen. He said everyone was in an uproar. And he said that his cousin is like, I'm getting the hell out of here. And I'm just there reading, and I'm like, because one man died, he's like, I'm getting the hell out of here.
yeah, yeah. But like, it's just like if a U.S. president all of a sudden keeled over, there'd be a million conspiracy theories to why.
Yeah.
They'd look at his recent bills he's passed, or if there was an unpopular bill or something, or an unpopular belief system,
Presidency.
all of a sudden that would be the reason why.
Yes.
Well, I mean, look at Kennedy. And Kennedy
Mm-hmm.
did get assassinated, but there's about a million different reasons why he had to go, right? Like, and
Yeah.
and it's funny because if you look back, like Kennedy is a good example. If Kennedy had continued being president and survived his term, I don't think that he'd be looked back upon with the same light that he is now.
I mean, from
Because Kennedy didn't really do very much.
like
I mean, the
everything
Bay
I've
of
known,
Pigs was enough to sink most presidents.
yeah. But the whole
Um,
thing with Kennedy is like everyone, even over here, has always said the most famous thing that Kennedy ever did was die.
yeah, like, so yeah, it's just it's interesting how uh, death can sometimes be a better story, especially if it's
Yeah.
somebody of import. They it's looked at differently. Well, they just couldn't keel over. That can't happen. Well, yeah, it happens every day of the week, but okay.
Are you familiar with what George
There's
IV
always
did?
got to be there's always got to be a bigger, badder reason.
Yeah.
There's always got to be somebody's got to
Something.
be at fault for it, especially if they're beloved, right? If they are
Yes.
beloved, it can't just be an accident. An accident can't happen.
Or old age or something
Yeah, it
like that.
can't be any of that, right?
No.
You
I mean,
could
George
have,
IV,
if you have a
Right.
beloved figure and they're 165 and they die,
Queen
there's going to
Elizabeth.
be, well, there's, something had to have killed them. Yeah, it's called being
Yeah.
165.
I mean, George IV turned around and he went down into like Westminster Abbey with a crowbar, basically, and said, "Okay, let's see, can we find out why all these people actually died?"
Yeah.
Because he wanted to like prove to himself, "Oh, this is what really happened. This is what really happened." And he said, what really intrigued him was, I forget, one of the medieval kings, their skulls were crushed in.
Yeah. Well,
And
the funny part is, like, once you get past the Middle Ages and you get into more modern monarchy, like once you get to about 1920s and on, maybe even a little bit earlier than that, but for the most part, it's not like it once was. The reason that you had King Henry or his descendants always watching their back, and we look back and go, they were very paranoid. They had a reason to be paranoid.
yeah,
Okay,
literally,
they just did. Okay, people like to kill kings. It was just the thing to do.
it was a hobby. I mean, especially it was a hobby of the Irish. They
Yes. So they had a reason to be a little weary of
sketchy.
things. Elizabeth in modern day, not so much. I mean, there are still, Elizabeth's famous line, when asked, "Do you like going to Ireland?" And she goes, "Yes, but one never knows when one might be shot."
Yeah, like
so
that.
there's that. But
She came to Croke Park, and everyone was literally terrified. They were like, "Oh, will there be?" This was like 2017, 2010, that kind of era, right? And they're like, "Will she be shot?" Like, this is just wrong to people. And we were watching the match, and it's like, "Is she gonna be shot?" Ah, fuck. And after she went home, a lot of people went, "Well, that was uneventful."
Yeah. Well, like in modern day, I mean, they're most protected people in the world. I was saying this before we went live. Elizabeth, the last time she was in Ottawa, it was hilarious because
Yes.
you see our prime minister. He's got a RCMP car in front of him, an RCMP car behind him, and he's in an RCMP driven Suburban.
Yes.
And then you have Queen Elizabeth. She is in a Rolls Royce, and there are 10 cars in her motorcade.
A little difference there, right?
Yeah.
Can I get your opinion in everything that we've seen of Queen Elizabeth? Do you think she's got long left?
Oh yeah, she's gonna live close to her mother.
Yay.
Although it will
She
be
might
interesting.
outlive Charles.
I hope so.
That won't.
Whoops! Did I
Nobody
say
likes
that?
Charles.
The thing with Elizabeth is, as much as I respect our reigning monarch, it's almost an itch that needs to be scratched to see what happens after she's gone.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, one of the things that is keeping the monarchy where it is the fact that Elizabeth is at the helm.
Hmm.
Once Elizabeth goes, that funeral is going to be amazing. I'm just saying that
Oh,
funeral
I'm going to
is
have
gonna be
popcorn
big,
and
loud and huge. Don't go
they're
anywhere
going.
near London at that point.
They're going
Because
to
it
make
will
a
be
big
packed.
fact. Yeah, they're going to make a huge fact, and they already are. They're placing Charles already as king. He's doing all the duties. Her speech, it was Charles on the throne, not Elizabeth. Charles has been taking up all the duties. Everywhere Elizabeth.
Charles is starting to take up a lot, especially after her husband died.
Yeah.
So there's a correlation that'll be interesting to see if Charles takes the throne more graceful than Victoria's son did.
Why? You mean out whoring?
Because when Victoria died, her son was not all that graceful about taking the throne.
Oh no,
Um,
no. Afterwards, he got rid of. Do you think he was her boyfriend, the Indian guy, the Indian helper? Do you think that was her boyfriend?
Could have been. But my favorite story, and I can't verify this, but I've always heard it when they talk about the transition. So take it with a grain of salt. But the story goes that the king was walking past the naval yards, and he comes upon a line of warships in harbor, and they all have their flags at half mast. It's the day after Victoria dies, and or shortly after. And the king walks up and says, "Why are your flags at half mast?" And he says, "Well, our queen is dead." He says, "Yeah, but your king lives. Now raise your flags." Because he had been in waiting forever. Right? Queen Victoria just
Yeah.
would not die.
I mean, I believe I've heard this a few times, where they said when Queen Victoria passed away, his first words were, "Oh, thank fuck."
Pretty much. He made no bones about it. He was not polite about it. He wanted the throne.
Do you think that
And
Charles will go, oh, when Elizabeth dies, when he's in private, do you think he'll go, "Oh my God, finally"?
no, actually, in some ways, I think Charles is gonna go, "Oh shoot." In some ways, Charles wants the throne, and I think in some ways, Charles doesn't want the throne.
Yeah.
I with Charles, it's very he doesn't have the support that Elizabeth does. He doesn't have the support that William does.
I wonder.
Yeah, I
do
agree
you
with
think
that.
do you think he'll abdicate after,
No,
say, you think he'll live it out?
he'll live it out.
Yeah, because wasn't
Here's the thing with the application, and now we're really off topic, but I don't care. Here's the problem with the application problem. Okay?
Rambling.
If Charles abdicates, it is the biggest disgrace for a royal to do. It's not like retiring from work, right? They don't give you a watch, and it is an absolute disgrace. If you look at the last application, which was in the 30s, he didn't even live in Britain anymore.
he couldn't. The
Right?
family wouldn't talk to him.
No. So he was put off in some faraway place and just kind of told, "Die, please." When Elizabeth dies, if Charles abdicates, it will be worse than if he doesn't, because it will tarnish William's reign.
From everything I'm seeing of Europe, it seems that everyone is focused on all the grandkids. Like they're all seeing for when.
Well, I got one word for you. Why?
Fashion.
Diana. Anyway, that's also why Charles is not belle of the ball. One word.
Oh yeah,
Diana.
No, one word. Camilla.
Well, her too. I mean, and in a way, that's where him and the Traitor King have in common. But that's besides the point. Married a divorcee. But it's not as frowned upon now as it was back in the day. Back in
I
his
mean,
grandfather's day.
yeah.
I think it had something to do with she was American too that had an issue.
I
But that's
mean, well,
besides the point.
yeah.
But let's not split hairs. If it was just the matter of the king marrying a American divorcee, I think they would have got away with it. Even like I honestly believe if that was the only issue, I honestly believe that that wouldn't have been the issue. The issue was he was best friends with a certain German ruler.
Yeah, that was a major problem.
Okay, so he had to go
Yeah.
because the king is briefed on everything.
Hey, Alex. Yeah.
And it's proven fact now that they kept things from him while he was
I
on the throne.
Do you think that if, say, he stayed on the throne, right? Do you think if he turned around and said, "We're going to switch sides or stop, we're going to stop fighting"? Do you think that Churchill would have gone, "Anywho"?
Well, I honestly think if he had stayed king, Churchill probably would not have become prime minister.
Yeah.
Because that whole thing would have changed differently. Because I don't think Britain would have declared war.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because
Maybe
the
not.
king would have been on side.
And he's the one who
Um,
declares war.
the king would have been. There are rumors and some evidence, but not a lot, that he was promised that when Britain fell, he would be reinstated. So that's how tight. I mean, that's you can't prove it, but it's always been kind of implied that if Britain had fallen, he would have been reinstated as king.
I heard that one of the Romanov cousin, like nephews or something like that, when that German ruler said, "Hey, if I get Russia, I'll give you the Tsardom," and he turned around and he said, "If you give me the Tsardom, I'm going to march on Berlin."
Yeah.
Like literally in an hour.
You got to remember too. World War One for Russia sucked.
Yeah.
Right? It just
It
sucked
took for
all the way
everyone.
around. It sucked. But the the political landscape of the royal families, whichever one you want to pick, is always more interesting as an outsider.
It is.
Because we always look at it like um that, well, number one, there's got to be another reason. There's got to be this. There's got to be this. Like my favorite story, when Diana passed, was how like the British people had a brain fart, an absolute brain fart. And what I loved was the Queen Mother, because she had no political leanings and wasn't the reigning monarch, quite happily put them in their place.
Mhm.
Which was funny. Elizabeth did too, but she did it tactfully because she had to. The Queen Mother was a little bit more direct. When Diana died, there was a big hoopla in London when Elizabeth returned to Buckingham,
Yeah. Wasn't it
because
because
the
she didn't
royal
hug the grandkids?
standard was at full mast. When the royal standard flew over Buckingham, it was flying at full mast. And the British people cried out for the royal standard to be lowered to half mast in reverence to Diana.
Mhm.
And the Queen Mother was asked what she thought of this. And her answer was thus: "The flag didn't drop for my husband, and he was king. Why would it drop for Diana?" Which everybody went, "Oh, yeah, Forgot about that.
Yeah, but here's the thing: did you know that they have a redesigned one for when going forward for when the monarchs die? It's a black. It's a black. The exact same flag, but it's black, and it's going to be raised.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Well, see, the royal standard itself can't be dropped because
yeah,
if the royal standard is dropped, it means the reigning monarch is dead. The problem with that is the second that Elizabeth's heart stops beating, Charles is king.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the reigning monarch never dies.
yeah. But here's
Therefore,
the
the flag never drops.
yeah. I saw this, and I'm like, okay, a little bit of respect. So, you know when, if Elizabeth died today, right, and Charles is up at Windsor Castle, right, but Elizabeth's body is in Buckingham, that standard is going to be raised because the Queen is still there. There's still a monarch still in there.
Yeah, Charles. Well, no, what would happen is if let's say Elizabeth is in Buckingham and
Yes.
Charles is in Windsor, the royal standard would be taken off of Buckingham and raised in Windsor.
Yeah.
That's what would happen. The royal standard would come down from Buckingham and it would be raised in Windsor.
I just got a message that's actually quite apt. It says, Queen Elizabeth's last words are already measured out. It's, Charles, what are you doing with that pillow? Charles?
Yeah, pretty much.
You want to end it here? Because you were saying that you wanted to go half an hour.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably wrap this up pretty quick.
Okay, can I shoot
but
a bit?
I do want to touch on one little thing before we head out. So we should be returning back to normal broadcasting things for the most part. I still have to come up with a replacement show for Friday. So maybe shoot me some ideas, guys, what you'd like to see me cover.
Alternate history.
I can't.
No, not on this channel.
I can't on this channel.
And
I do
Robert's
that
already
on,
doing that.
I
on
do
his
that
other
on
channel.
Rambling Canuck, but I can't do that here. With respect to the other originator of this channel, I can't.
Okay.
But with that said, thank you all. And until next time, thank you. And good night.